Welcome everyone. It's 6 p.m. on May 25th. I'll call the meeting of our town council to order. If we can please take a moment of silence to acknowledge all of those that do and have served in the past, enabling each and every one of us our safety, the privilege to vote, and most importantly, our freedom. Thank you all. In accordance with Mass General Law, tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. I would ask if anyone in our audience could please identify themselves if they are recording. Looks like we're all set. Tonight's meeting is being virtually held through a Zoom webinar pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of our open meeting law. Item 3, public comments. Jeannie, I believe we have a couple of participants this evening.
We do. We have Greg Thompson, who requested for public comment, and also Sarah Trullo has also requested. Okay. They're on the agenda.
All right. Don, could you bring our first public speaker in, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, Greg's aboard. Hi, Greg.
He's muted. Okay.
Hi, Mike.
Before we get started, it's been a while since we've had anyone signed up for public comments. I would just like to pass along Rule 5F, Council rules adopted on the 26th of 2016. Each regular meeting of our council, there is a period of time set aside for public comments. Any member of the public desiring to address the council shall be recognized by the presiding officer and shall state his or her name and address for the record. Time allowed for public comment is limited to 3 minutes. And I would ask Jeannie, could you keep a general idea on the time so it doesn't slip away on us?
Sure. I'll just raise my hand when it comes to that point.
Sounds good. Thanks. Greg, welcome.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Greg Thompson, 426 Porter Road. Would you like me to just start, Mr. President?
Please.
Okay. Good evening, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm Greg Thompson, chair of the East Long Meadow School Committee, and I'm here to discuss the budget process this year. Since your budget hearing is tonight, I wanted to be able to give you all a glimpse into our perspective as a school committee and discuss the charter. As you are all aware, the town charter outlines the annual budget process in Article 6, Section 1. Step 1, the president of the town council should call a joint meeting of the town council and school committee prior to the commencement of the budget process to review the financial conditions of the town, review and any expenditure forecasts and other relevant information to be presented by the town manager in order to develop and coordinate a budget. We did do that in February. The town council, town manager, full school committee did meet. We disclosed all those things that are discussed above, and the consensus of both the town manager and town council was that all departments should aim for a level services budget in consideration of forecasted sources for the year. Step 2 in the charter, the town manager and the town council should meet to discuss the town council's priorities for the upcoming fiscal year and discuss the budget format. This was done. The formats were sent out. Level services was requested by the school department. Step 3, the town manager shall meet with the superintendent of schools and discuss upcoming fiscal year budget prior to the submission of the proposed operating budget. That was also done, submitted as requested, and the school department submitted a level services requested budget. Step 4, that's this evening. By May 1st, the town manager will submit a proposed operating budget for all town agencies to the town council, which shall include the school budget as adopted by the school committee for ensuring fiscal year. This was done. The town manager submitted a level services budget for the school department. And then step 5, the town council should adopt the budget with or without amendment by June 1st. That's actually tonight. I misspoke. Before you tonight is a proposal from the Financial Oversight Committee, a committee appointed by the town council president. It is different from the budget presented by the town manager. We, as a school committee, met with the Financial Oversight Committee and talked about our level services budget request. The week after we met, which was 2 weeks ago, with the Financial Oversight Committee, they voted on a reduction of $404,000 to the level services request with little discussion of the ramification of such a reduction. There should have been robust discussion over the consensus of such a large cut. Again, there was not. A cut to level services budget is a cut to the school staffing. The stated priority of the town council was level services. Why does a subcommittee of the council have different priorities than the priorities stated by the elected council? $404,000 is a huge cut. We invited financial oversight chair and members to our meetings and offered to attend their meetings. The opportunity has never presented itself. If a cut to level services is approved tonight, there will be staff reduction in the schools. A cut to level services is a cut to school staff. For this year, I would propose bridging the gap to the school department receiving a full level services budget as requested by using the funds returned by the school department for this year's operating budget, thus not impacting the mill rate for the upcoming year. Then let's all work together to A, follow the charter as written, and B, work collectively like we always end up doing to have a budget process that is predictable and represents the wants and needs of our community through the deliberation and consensus of the elected boards. I thank you for your time. And again, I'm requesting that the town council vote to fully fund the school department's level services budget request.
Thank you, Greg.
Hey, I look forward to seeing everybody in a real meeting someday. It's coming soon. So look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don would be ready to bring in our second speaker when you're able to do that.
Yep, here she is.
Oh, that was quick.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Perfect. So my name is Sarah Trulio, and I live at 21 Oxford Lane. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the council this evening, and thank you to the chair of the school committee for explaining the process that has led us to this point. This evening, I'm going to take a few moments to discuss the impacts of a $400,000 plus cut to the school department budget. As we have said during our meetings, this would result in staff members being cut, which will undoubtedly include cuts at the classroom level, as the chair just explained. Up to this point, we have expended the ESSER funds that we have received to make critical purchases that allowed us to not only open in April, but remain open with minimal impacts in programming for our students. Some of these purchases so far have included PPE for staff and students, increased cleaning supplies for our custodial staff, the rental of tents to ensure that students are able to move outdoors for snack, lunch, and learning opportunities, the purchasing of desks so that we could ensure that we were maintaining proper social distancing. Signage was also purchased for schools to support with each of the mitigation strategies that the Department of Health recommended. Additional permanent building subs were hired to support with staffing the buildings on a consistent basis. And finally, we were also able to upgrade our Wi-Fi so that we could allow our educators to work with both our in-person and our remote students concurrently. Those are just a few of the ways that we've expended the ESSER funds thus far. This is what we know we needed to do this year to ensure that we were able to open our doors and begin to welcome students back and ensure that our staff members felt safe and had the resources they needed to effectively engage students once again in in-person settings. Now that we are open, the work of beginning to address the social and emotional needs of our students needs to begin. We need to follow the academic data to ensure that we are allowing students access to the unfinished learning that has occurred for many of them. This is what we as a committee were planning to use the ESSER funds for as we move forward over the next 2 years. Our plan was to ensure that the remaining funds were expended based on student needs and data. There is a reason these funds do not have a stringent timeline attached to them. The state and federal government recognize that the work each school district is going to need to do to support the youth of their communities as a result of the pandemic will look differently and will need to remain fluid. As student needs change, the initiatives, resources, and professional development we need to provide has to adjust. You can see how this work has begun already with our expanded summer learning options. This is just one example of how we as a committee are thinking creatively to support students, staff, and families with moving forward after a year like no other. Now, if in a year from now, we as a committee see that we have some balances remaining, then of course we would continue to work with the town to support our community as a whole. We've already proven that we've been willing to do this over the past few years. This is what we have done in the past, and we will continue to commit to do as we move forward. However, I cannot stress enough that the unknown impacts or the effects that we have not yet felt or are just beginning to feel are our reality and our responsibility as a committee. We are charged with expending these funds in support of students, and we take that charge very seriously. We are one community, and we met the mark of the level services budget as was requested during the budget process. We hope that the vote we took last night speaks to our commitment, not only to the students of this community and trying to protect the operating budget of the school department, but also our commitment to the town and its taxpayers. We look forward to the public hearing and the discussion this evening and hope that there's resolution for all the parties involved and that our schools are safeguarded as you cast your votes tonight. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to being a part of the discussion as we move forward.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jeannie, thank you for your help with the public session here. Council comments? Then we're going to move along to our town manager's report.
Thank you, Councilor Kane. The report tonight is very short. In anticipation of a rather lengthy meeting, I tried to spare you some of my excess verbiage. 2 key points in the report. As you know by now, for sure, as of May 29th, all the COVID restrictions are going to be lifted throughout Massachusetts, so that's very good news. And as a consequence of that order, I've accelerated our reopening plan so that all town buildings will be open on June 7th. That's the date I had originally given the library, and I really don't see any need to accelerate that, but I have moved the town hall reopening forward by 2 weeks, so it will coincide with that June 7th date. The only other thing that was in the report is about the farmers market that Recreation Department put on or sponsored a week ago Friday. And it was a great success, and with everything they do, they had an outpouring of support and participation, and many other vendors have already sought space in the upcoming farmers markets to be held over the course of the next several months. So I just wanted to let them know how much their effort is appreciated. And the only other thing I wanted to add, which I had sent to you today in an email, was that the governor today filed a bill to extend the relaxation of the open meeting law restrictions, among other things. I sent you a copy of that order in an email. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at it, but what it does is give an extension through September 1st so that we don't have to resume physical in-person meetings as of June 15th, as was originally thought. And the reason that for the September 1st date was so that the legislature can work on permanent amendments to the open meeting law. But also in that order, the outside dining permits have been extended beyond the 60 days, beyond the close of the emergency, which would have been August 15th. Those are extended. And the details are all incorporated in the governor's bill, which I sent. And I'll put that up on the website probably tomorrow so the public can be aware of it. So that's really all I have to take of your time tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Under approval of the minutes, I'd entertain a motion to approve our May 11th open session minutes.
To move to approve the May 11th, 2021 open session minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing and seeing none, we'll roll call vote. Donnie Anderson.
Aye.
I'm a yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
Thank you. Those are the only minutes we have for approval tonight. There are no communication, correspondence, and announcements. Jeannie, would you be kind enough to give us a review on the annual town election update?
Sure. This will be a brief update. I just wanted to bring up a key point though of this ballot. The local election is June 8th at Birchland Park from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then we've got, on the ballot, we've got the 3 candidates running for 2 open seats on town council, 2 candidates running for 1 seat on school committee. And there's 8 ballot questions that relate to charter amendments that were approved by town council, and those are being proposed on the ballot. So any day, every household of the registered voter should get a mailing from my office. And there's a cover letter with more detailed election information, and also a 4-page explanation of the charter ballot questions. There's the 8 questions and the summaries that are on the ballot, but also in the mailing is an explanation of each section of what the strikeouts are and what the additions are in greater detail. So the voters can look at that. On the website, under the news tab, under town election information, you can find information, the sample ballot. You can find a copy of that mailing if you want to look at it now or you don't receive it in a few days. And there's also a full, the full charter document showing all the proposed changes and the approved changes by the town council. So all that is there. There's also a link to a vote by mail application that's allowed during this election. And you can download that if you want to vote by mail and not go in person. Early in-person voting, again, is not happening with this election. So I wanted to also, well, just stress that people should look at that charter amendment when they have time. And you can make notes on that document and bring it with you into the polls. That's allowed to do that. And that will save a lot of time at the polls for people trying to, try to make up their mind or absorb the information. And if they have questions about that mailing, they can certainly call my office to get more details or more backup on that. As far as COVID restrictions for this election, because we're in a school, masks should be worn at all times when we're in the school. And we are still having the COVID precautions. We're still sanitizing, trying to do social distancing. School will be in session, so it'll be challenging, but I'm asking all the voters to, adhere to the mask wearing for the school and the students and try to follow the restrictions. We'll have plenty of election workers and volunteers trying to deal with the foot traffic coming and going at the voting polls. Okay.
While we have the time, does anyone have any questions for Jeannie regarding the election? Okay, thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well done.
Our public hearing is scheduled for 6:30. We're a little bit short of that right now, so I would entertain a motion to come out of order. If we could move to 9D1.
I'll make a motion to take item 9D1 out of order and then return to the normal order of the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? I didn't think so. Hearing and seeing none. Start the vote with myself. I'm a yes. Don?
Yes?
Tom?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
Thank you. Jeannie, do you want to, well, I can start off by, I've had a conversation with Jeannie and Mary, but I'll let Jeannie finish it up. It's the discussion regarding our June 21st meeting dates.
Right, so the June 8th does fall on the second Tuesday of the month. However, it also falls on the town annual election. I think maybe we should look at a change in the council rules and charter about this and try to tighten that up. The election is to fall on the second Tuesday following the first Monday of June. So you can see how sometimes that would conflict with the second Tuesday of the month in the June month for the council meetings. So unless you want to have a meeting without Jackie and me, no meeting should be held on an election anyway. So that's a glitch we have to fix, but because of that conflict, we have to move the June meeting date for this year. And then in the next 12 months, we look at those rules and see how we can amend them to make this not happen again.
Yeah, this is the first time I remember it happening, falling on a second Tuesday of the month. But anyway, we have a plan. So thanks, Jeannie. This might be a good time to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You want to formally agree on a date for June? I don't know if it needs a motion, but a motion wouldn't hurt since we're sort of out of order of the charter, so.
Sure. I would ask for a motion, if everyone would be in agreement, to June 15th, which is the following Tuesday after our election. to hold our town council meeting. Is there a motion? Does anyone have that motion, or could I have one, please?
I move, excuse me.
Yeah.
I move that the council change its June 8th meeting to June 15th, 2021, so as to avoid conflict with our annual town elections.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the date change? Hearing and seeing none. Tom?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. We have a meeting date for June. And I'm showing about 9 minutes early for our public hearing. I don't think there's any other business that we can really knock out of the way. So I would say get something cold to drink. Pat?
Mike, was there a letter from a resident with regard to the school budget that came this week that was not answered or that might be read?
Not that I'm aware of. There were some emails that went out, and those emails were answered. If they were looking for questions, I know there was an email that went out, and I believe you answered the email. I followed with an answer and deferred to Kathy to get more into depth on that conversation, and that was complied with.
The one I'm referring to was more recent, but that's okay, as long as it's been answered.
Okay. Still looking at 6:22. So we want to take a brief recess. Is that the pleasure of the council? Or do you want to just hang here on the screen?
Recess.
Is there another item we can bring forward?
Well, we could come out of order and move to 9A and work our way through 9A, B, and C. There are no issues, so that would probably eat up about 2 minutes. But if that's our pleasure, I'll accept the motion to move to 9A.
I'll make a motion that we move out of order to items 9A, B, C, and D to the point where when the first public hearing at 6:30 begins, we go back to that public hearing and continue regular order.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion's been seconded. Any discussion? The only discussion I'll add is when we get to 9D, we've already discussed 9D1, which was the meeting date. So we'll go to 9D2 and then we'll return back to our agenda order. That's all I have for discussion. And seeing and hearing no other discussion, we'll roll call vote. Don Anderson?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
Okay. 9A, licensing matters. We have no licensing matters this evening. 9B is our financial matters. Nothing on the agenda under financial matters. There is no old business to discuss. As I mentioned earlier, we took care of 9D, which was under new business, the discussion of our council meeting date. And action items for our next meeting. I'm sorry, Pat?
Mike, would we want to schedule potentially another meeting in June, or is the second meeting in June already on the calendar?
The agenda is looking fairly light right now. I'm hopeful that if nothing comes out of that, the 15th will be the only meeting in June.
Thank you.
I'm already talking with other council members about vacation time and things like that, but it'll be on the radar, and if anything comes up that's significant, we'll have an opportunity to discuss that. Thanks, Pat. Okay, so everything's complied with. We'll be back up to 8A, waiting for 6:30. And I'm seeing a whole 5 minutes left. Marilyn?
Would June 15th be Dawn's last meeting? No? Tonight is your last meeting? So we need to talk about Dawn. Well, wouldn't we want to do?
I'm not kidding. I'll miss you guys. I really will. This was an honor being a Western New England grad in 1980, government major, and not realizing that my side career of being in politics would be 28 of the last 33 years. And as I posted right before the meeting, I told the team East Long Meadow, you guys are in great hands. I think this council is fabulous. I mean, each and every one of you is really dedicated. We have also an amazing team here with Jeannie and Jackie and every other department we have. And Mary has been an incredible hire. I'm honored to have spent the time I've had on here with Mary McNally. So thank you. And Steve, to my left, at least in my picture, was another example of a great hire by Mary. I remember Steve from seeing those lien certificates and tax titles and things for Springfield, and also a pleasure to work with Don Mackey, who's also on the screen as well. So love you guys, and miss you. I wish this was a regular meeting so we could do like we used to do in the early days, and maybe go out and have an adult beverage and toast the future and the past. But thank you.
Thank you. And
You've done, yeah.
we know where to find you.
That's right, we do.
Yes, you do.
And
Yes, you do.
you might be getting a get out of jail free pass for the town council, but as you know, there are many committees that your talents will be well recognized, and hopefully we can lean on you for that. Right, Marilyn?
Right. I'd just like to say that Don and I got started years ago when we were both, he was elected to the planning board, I was elected to the Board of Selectmen. And it's always been, we've either been in front of one another or behind one another, team tagging, whether it's select board or planning board or town council. And I don't know what I'm going to do now that you're not in elected office at all. Because you've always been.
You have my cell phone, and I also offer whoever my successor is. You have, if whatever reason they want any pearls of ideas or wisdom, if I can impart it on anyone, I'm more than happy to help whoever my successor is.
Just thank you so much for all of your work over, how many years has it been? 40?
1988, April. Remember we had our victory party with Kate Turpey, who was on the school committee, over at the former Willow Glen, the Red Jacket. Boy, am I dating myself with that one, huh? Yeah.
Now it's a funeral home.
What can I say?
Thank you for everything.
Thank you guys also. I really mean that.
Okay, we're getting close. I'm seeing about under a minute left. Pat?
When Don mentioned going from Western New England government to helping the town council, I thought of Dr. Seuss, oh, the places you'll go.
Right?
I think Don's been to them all.
So if you can just bear with me for probably another 25 seconds, we'll meet the legality of our first public hearing here. Okay, I'm showing 6:30, and tonight's public hearing for a required first reading for the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw, section 7.2 special permit. Could I ask Ralph to read the bylaw?
You could, but I don't have it sitting in front of me. Does Jeannie have it sitting in front of her?
I do.
Michael,
Marilyn, go ahead.
are you asking for the entire bylaw to be read or the additional language that's being added to the special permits? It would be the additional language would be section 7.30 criteria, and it would be item I. Is that the information you're looking for?
I believe.
Read, or did you want the entire special permit section read?
No.
No,
I
just,
know, I don't want to do it.
okay, so
Go ahead, Ralph.
I can jump in because I just dug it out here.
I have it too.
So what we're looking at doing is adding under section 7.3 criteria, a item number I, which is all required state and local licenses must be acquired and kept current. Failure to meet this criterion is grounds for revocation of the special permit by the special permit granting authority.
Thank you. So this evening, our council members are, I'm Mike Kane, Donnie Anderson to my right, Kathy Hill, Ralph Page, Pat Henry, Tom O'Connor, and Marilyn Richards. Jeannie, could I ask you to read the legal notice into the record, please?
Sure. The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 25, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom webinar for the purpose of amending and clarifying Section 7.2 Special Permits, subsection 7.30 Criteria. Information relating to this proposed bylaw is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public on the town's website, www.eastlongmeadowma.gov. For the council, Jean R. Quagletti, Town Clerk, Clerk of the Council.
Thank you. Ralph, not to put you on the spot, but do you have the rationale for the proposed amendment?
I have my rationale. So under the zoning bylaws, under the criteria, under special permit, currently there is no criteria that states that you have to keep your licenses current. So this came about with regards to kennel licenses. But when I talked with Bethany and the bylaw committee did, we felt as though this language would be better because this addresses all businesses. So any business which is under a special permit will be required to keep any licenses that they need current. I thought it was a very simple solution to hopefully an issue that will never come up again.
Thank you. Pat, you have something to add?
Yes, and this was a recommendation from Jesse Belcher Timmy from Doherty Wallace Pillsbury that we actually do this in a memo that they sent out December 4th, 2020.
Exactly. Okay. Now I'm going to ask Don Mackey if there's anyone in the public. We're going to open up the public section of the public hearing to see if there might be any speakers that would like to speak on the subject matter.
Yes, I do have one, Mike.
Okay. And
Angela Bovat,
okay.
I'll bring her in.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Angela Bovat.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Your address, please.
I am not a resident of East Long Meadow. I am a parent of children that attend East Long Meadow schools. Their father is a resident of East Long Meadow. He lives at 11 Savoy Avenue.
Okay.
I also teach in the district.
Okay.
I wanted to make a quick comment this evening to say that I am extremely proud that my children attend schools in East Long Meadow, and I'm also extremely proud to teach in the district. When people ask me where I teach, I beam with pride. I think that I speak for lots of parents of students, as well as my colleagues, when I say that, you know, when we think about what is it that gives a great education to students.
Angela?
Yes.
Can I
Yes.
hold you just for 1 minute here? We do have 3 public hearings tonight, and the public hearing we're discussing right now is kennel licenses.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you very much. I
All
jumped the gun there.
Thank you.
Please come
Hang on,
back.
we'll bring you back later.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Don, I don't believe there are any other hands up regarding this public hearing.
No, sir, I don't see any.
Thank you. So we will close the public input piece of this public hearing. And I will ask if the counselors have any comments regarding this hearing. Ralph?
So Mike, I just wanted to point out that this did go through the planning board, and there was a vote of the planning board, which was in the affirmative 5-0 to recommend this zoning bylaw change. So the
Thank you.
planning board is good with it.
Thank you. So this is our first reading. There will be a second reading, so I'll entertain a motion regarding this public hearing.
Sure. Mike, I make a motion to continue the public hearing to address a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the purpose of amending and clarifying section 7.2 special permits, subsection 7.30 criteria to June 15th, 2021, 6:15 p.m. for a second reading.
I'll second that.
All right, Ralph, thank you for the motion and the second, Marilyn. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, a roll call vote is required. Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy? Oh, I caught her muted. Ralph?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Obviously this public hearing is closed and it will be continued for a second reading. Thank you all. And we have a 3-minute break. Very efficient this evening.
You know, I'd like to add, Michael, that when the planning board schedules their public hearings, they're all the same time. So you just start at the top of the list and you march right through them. And so if you get ahead of schedule, there's no problem. Maybe we should think about that.
Yeah, just enough time to grab a glass of water here, right? So.
I see you there, Pat.
Yeah, but you got no juice, Ralph.
I know, I got nothing. Mike does, though.
See, Mike is preoccupied.
Yeah.
I got to get my papers in order. Go ahead, Pat.
Thanks, Mike. In response to a previous counselor, I think the reason why we chose to have separate times is because so many times it takes much longer than we thought, and we end up with people sitting in the
Right.
audience for an hour or an hour and a half going, oh my goodness.
You're absolutely right. There's
Which could happen anyway.
You're both making valid points, and I guess it depends on the subject matter of the particular public hearing.
Right. Exactly.
So. All right, we're less than a minute, so we're doing fine.
Three, 2, 1, 0.
Liftoff. Okay, it's 6:40. Our second public hearing meeting this evening is required for a first reading of the proposed amendment to the general bylaw section 4.040. Town clerk. You do need to read a portion of that bylaw, and I would ask, is there any chance, Pat, that you might have that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, great.
Just got to fish it out. Okay, this subject came about at exactly the same time as the prior subject, which was that Pillsbury, Wallace, and Doherty indicated that we did not currently offer a kennel license. And we responded, well, this is because we don't have kennel licenses. We don't have kennel, we don't allow, our bylaws don't allow kennels in town. But the state does not differentiate between kennels and dog pet daycares. And so our lawyers indicated that we really should provide a procedure for licensing of pet daycares. And so we sent this over to Jeannie, and what came back was the recommendation for 1 to 4 dogs. I shouldn't go into detail. That's just the background. The background is that we did come up with a list of fees for dogs that would apply to kennels. And in this case, because we don't allow kennels, in this case, to pet daycares. I don't know that there's a formal reading. Well, I guess there has to be a formal reading, right, Jeannie?
Right at the top of the page, Pat,
Right.
I think is the formal reading.
It was the, excuse me, it was the addition of a fee under the town clerk fees and the general bylaws for kennel licenses.
I see it.
Is to add that fee to the list of fees for town clerk, excuse
The
me.
town of East Long Meadow is proposing a general bylaw amendment, adding number 33 to the list of town clerk fees in section 4.040 town clerk. The new fees would be for a kennel license. 1 to 4 dogs, $30. 5 to 10 dogs, $60. And each additional dog over 10, $20.
Okay. Once again, town council members, I'm Mike Kane. To my right is Don Anderson. Below me is Kathy Hill, Ralph Page, Pat Henry, Tom O'Connor, and Marilyn Richards. Jeannie, could I ask you to read the legal notice into the record, please?
Sure. The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 25, 2021 at 6:40 p.m. via Zoom webinar for the purpose of amending general bylaws, section 4.040, town clerk, to add fees for kennel licenses. Information relating to this proposed bylaw is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public on the town's website, www.eastlongmeadowma.gov. For the council, Jean R. Quaglietti, town clerk, clerk of the council.
Thank you, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
So our applicant being the town this evening, I believe Patrick already described the reasons and the rationale for the proposed amendment. If no one else has anything to add that, I'd like to open the, go ahead, Pat.
I would add for the public's benefit that in the original proposal from the bylaw committee, that fee was as described, except that the $10 per dog over 10 dogs was $100 for all dogs over 10. I unfortunately made this change because I was trying to work with the town manager, who suggested that we change that number. So this will be changed eventually after discussion, because we did have discussion at our last meeting, our last council meeting, at which we pointed out that we could be counting dogs forever if we use the $10 per dog over 10 dogs, because the different dog daycare centers go up and down and up and down and up and down, and the purpose isn't really to generate revenue. It's to generate, it's to health and safety of the public against rabies. And so I regret that slight change needs to be made, and I want to bring this up tonight, and we'll suggest that we change it during our discussion after the town has a chance to input.
Thank you, Pat. So Don, do you see anyone in the audience if we open up the public portion for input?
I don't see anybody at the moment. Nope.
Okay, so we will now close the public portion for input. And I would ask, is there any other additional comments from the council? I'll start with Tom.
I just wanted to state that I agree with Pat. We've had a previous conversation on this subject, and as Pat indicated, and my years of service to this town have dealt with this in the past. The purpose of licensing is to help identify animals in our community to protect the human and pets' health and safety, and not to punish people for having a number of dogs or for assisting communities with rescues and cleaning services, meaning pet cares that offer pet grooming. So the fee was $100 max, and I believe it should stay at that $100 max.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Pat, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, I wanted to agree with Tom that the $100 is what was originally suggested by the bylaw committee, changed unfortunately by me trying to work together with the town and, in ignorance. And that I agree with Tom that it should be changed for the next reading.
Thank you. If there are no, Ralph?
So Mike, do you need a motion to make the recommendation to change the fee schedule now? And that way there, when it goes forwards to the next meeting, it can be listed as if we choose to amend it, what it would be.
I was going to ask for that. I think it's a great offering here. This is our first meeting, and first reading. We will have a second reading, but I would prefer a motion so that's obviously recorded during this public hearing.
So Mike, if I can jump in, I will make a motion that we adjust the fee schedule as follows: 1 to 4 dogs, $30. 5 to 10 dogs, $60. More than 10 dogs, $100.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion in the fee structure? Hearing and seeing none. I'm a yes. Don Anderson?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we can move to motion. I'll entertain a motion under 8B, please.
I move to continue the public hearing to address a proposed general bylaw amendment, adding kennel license fees to the list of town clerk fees in section 4.040 to June 15th, 2021, 6:20 p.m. for a second reading.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Don Anderson?
Yes.
Tom O'Connor?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you all. We'll be back with a second reading on that particular public hearing. And I'm looking at my clock again, and I'm seeing about 11 minutes short from our third public hearing. And we would like to take a short break here, grab something to drink, or Don,
Mike,
I'm wondering, Don Mackey, did you have your hand up at all?
Well, no, I was just going to offer, so if you wanted to actually take some sort of a recess, everyone could turn off their cameras. I can pause the recording, turn off your cameras and mute yourselves. And I will change the name on my screen from East Long Meadow to meeting in recess until 6:58. And you could do that so you don't feel quite so visible for 10 minutes, but that I'm just offering that as as an option. It's up to you. Marilyn could bring up another topic of discussion if you wanted to.
I always do.
All right, what's our pleasure?
I just cover my screen. Then I can scratch.
So Mike, I would move that we go into recess until 6:58.
I'll second.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. I'm sure there's no further discussion. Speaking for all. I'm a yes. Don?
Yes.
Tom? Tom's muted.
Yes.
And Pat?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And,
I'm here.
oh, there, okay, you went away for a minute, Marilyn.
I'm here. Yes.
Where'd you go? Okay, and I'm a yes if I didn't already specify. So we're going into a mute mode, Don,
Yes, sir.
and we'll see you at, I don't know, 6:56. Thank you. Okay, I am showing 7 p.m. Welcome back, everyone. And Don, I just want to make sure we're ready to go.
I'm all set here, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Our third public hearing scheduled for this evening at 7 p.m. This public hearing is to present the town manager's proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2022 to the public for their comments as outlined by Article 6, Section 1 of the East Long Meadow Home Rule Charter. Our counselors this evening are, to my left, Pat Henry. I'm Mike Kane. To my right, across the top, Tom O'Connor, Marilyn Richards. Below, Kathleen Hill, Ralph Page, and Don Anderson. Jeannie, could you read the legal notice into the record, please?
Sure. In conformity with the requirements of MGL, the East Long Meadow Town Council hereby gives notice that it will hold a public hearing on May 25, 2021 at 7 p.m. via Zoom webinar to review the proposed FY22 operating budget as outlined by Article 6, Section 1 of the East Long Meadow Home Rule Charter. The proposed FY22 operating budget can be reviewed on the town's website, www.eastlongmeadowma.gov, government/town manager. For the council, Jean R. Quaglietti, town clerk of the council.
Thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
So I would start by asking Mary, obviously we have our financial oversight committee, and I didn't know if you had any statement or anything you wanted to add before we entertain bringing our oversight committee into our meeting.
No, President Kane, thank you. You know, the council's had my budget for well over a month. In the last 6 weeks or so, Steve Lonergan and I have been meeting with the Oversight Committee. So they have a few suggestions that are different than what I submitted. But other than that, no, it was a very cooperative effort. And now the ball's in your court, so to speak.
All right, thank you. Don, do you have the members from the Financial Oversight Committee?
I do, and they're on their way in.
All right, great.
Actually, could the rest of them raise their hands, because there's sort of a list here. Oh, the rest of you are already there, sorry. I think we have,
There you go.
that it? I have that right?
I believe so.
Thank you.
All right. I want to say welcome to everybody on the Financial Oversight Committee. And thank you for joining us this evening, not to mention all the hard work and due diligence and time that you spent over the last few months. So I'd just like to go over something here from Rule 11, which is committee parameters and guidelines. The Financial Oversight Standing Committee will be comprised of 3 council members, or I should say up to 3 council members, and up to 3 town residents. It will be responsible for working with the town manager, our department heads, to review the town manager's proposed annual budget and capital plan and report its recommendations to the full council. So for those of you tuning in the first time, going through the budget process with us, I figured if you had a brief explanation on how this process works, it might be helpful. The responsibilities of our town council financial oversight committee are, this is created by the town council as a committee of the town council. Way back in the day, I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but there was communication through the board that created our charter, and there were subject matters regarding appropriation committees and such. And where we ended up with that basically was under Article 2. It gave the town council the ability to be able to appoint ad hoc committees or any other committees that would be helpful in helping us do all the heavy lifting through a process such as this process, which a budget, which is very time consuming. The purpose is to review on behalf of the town council the draft FY town budget, both operating and capital, as I mentioned earlier, but our revolving and enterprise funds, and make recommendations to the town council of any changes to the draft budget for the council to consider its deliberations regarding the budget and its vote authorizing the final approved FY budget, authorized by the town council to conduct a review of the draft budgets and to contact on behalf of the town council, the town manager, department heads, boards, including school board and school administration as needed to discuss and investigate budgets in order to develop the committee's recommendation to the town council. So as long as I've been here over the last 4 to 5 years, we've had committees as such. And you can see tonight we have members from our council and members that are residents of the town. So I would like to introduce them and let you know a little bit about why they were chosen and what they bring to the plate. So if we start with our chairperson, Jim Broderick. Jim Broderick has lived in East Long Meadow for approximately 40 years. He graduated from Dartmouth College with an MBA from Harvard Business School, worked in a local bank from 1973 to 2012. He's retired, but started with the Springfield Institution, or SIS Bank, ending with TD Bank. Held various functional positions, ending with the VP Regional Manager for Commercial Real Estate and Lending. Under the town's previous form of government, Jim was a former chair and member of our Capital Planning Committee, a former chair and longtime member of our Appropriations Committee. Excuse me. Involved in various nonprofit organizations within the greater Springfield area. So that's a little bio on Jim, and glad to have you here, and glad you're participating and took the role of chair tonight's meeting. Chris Sagne, basically Bachelor of Arts from Anna Maria College, Fundamentals of Real Estate Appraisal, Principles of Assessing Procedures, Department of Revenue courses, Assessment and Administration and Law, Department of Revenue course, Assessment Office Procedures, Continuing Education, Specialty courses at the University of Mass. Chris's employment history: 06 to 2018, an assessor for the town of East Long Meadow and served as chair. 2015, consulting assessor, City of East Hampton, assessing consulting in Springfield, assessing consulting in the City of Springfield, and consult town of Montague, Princeton, Stoneham. 1986 to 2003, director of assessing town of Montague, retired. Her qualifications: Massachusetts accredited assessor, professional designation number 383, certified by Massachusetts Department of Revenue. Personal data: Chris has lived in town for 57 years, member and past president of Mass Association of Assessing Officers, former member and chair of MAAO Legislative Committee, former chair MAAO, again, state-owned land committee, former member of the International Association of Assessing Officers, former member of the past chair, East Long Meadow Appropriations Committee, member and former chair, Town Council Financial Oversight Committee, treasurer of College Club Springfield, Mass, scholar committee chair, College Club of Springfield. Chris, thank you for all your time and efforts over the last few years. Kathy Hill, Kathy's no new face to our board or our town. 37-year resident of East Long Meadow. Husband and I raised 2 children here, both East Long Meadow Public School alumni and grads of area colleges. Career middle level educator, 1974 to 2013. BS English, secondary education, 1974. MED, school administration, 1978. CACS, school leadership, 1998. Middle school teacher, East Long Meadow Public School, 92 to 97. Middle school principal, East Long Meadow Public School, 97 to 2013. Board of Directors, New England League of Middle Schools, 2004 to 2020. East Long Meadow Educators Hall of Fame, 2018. Kathy, thank you for all you do with this committee and what you've contributed to the council. Tom O'Connor has served our community on many volunteer boards and committees, and most recently on our town council over the last 15 years. His experience brings 33 years of experience in business management, compliance, information management, facility management, and 2 Fortune 500 companies. Extensive experience includes budgeting, regulatory compliance, and identifying process improvement opportunities. Current town services, currently serves on the town council's finance committee, as we know, licensing, planning, town managers evaluation committee, and the bylaws subcommittee. Previous town services, strong working knowledge of town operations and functions from 2006 to 2018. I served as an elected member of the Charter Commission, chair of the Capital Planning, the Liquor License Committee, appointed member of Town Managers Contract Committee, and chair of the Register of Voters. Tom, thank you for your services. Mr. Fitzgerald, there you are, down on the left. More than 30 years of recognized experience, administrator, teach, coach, current experience, school committee member from 2011 to 2020, elected to a 3-year term in April of 2011. Adjunct professor, American International College, 2011 to present. Responsibilities include supervision of teachers, field-based research students, and administrative candidates. Please go on and on. I'm going as quick as I can. Principal, East Long Meadow High School, 1987 to 2010, retired in June of 2010. East Long Meadow High School school has a student enrollment of 950 and a staff of 100. Vice principal, Situate High School, 85 to 87. House teacher, 81 to 85 in Brooklyn High School. Teaching includes English teacher, Brooklyn High School from 77 to 81. English teaching in Brooklyn High School from 76 to 77. Academic teacher for special needs, 76 to 77. Now we talk a little bit about his coaching, 1974 to 1985. Assistant varsity coach at Brooklyn High School, freshman coach at Brooklyn High, and Massachusetts Hockey Hall of Fame Award in 1999. Football, varsity first assistant coach at Brookline, head junior varsity coach at Brookline, freshman coach at Brooklyn School once again. His education credentials include a master's plus 21 in 83 to 2010, master's in education at Cambridge College, 1983, Bachelor of Arts, English and Psychology, 1973 up at the University of Mass, and a diploma, Malden Catholic High School, top 1% of the class in Malden, Mass. Special awards and publications, Principal of the Year, Massachusetts Consular Association in 2007, guest lecturer, 2009, 2007, 1999, 1988, 1992, and 1988. University of Mass, Westfield State, Department of Elementary, Secondary Education, Springfield College. This is very impressive, Richard. Leadership Academy, 1989. Leadership Academy, 1987. Carnegie Foundation, Washington, D.C., 1983. University of Mass, Amherst, 1978. Education committees, elementary principalship search committee in 2010, 98 and 87. Writing group committee, 87 to 1990. Pioneer Valley Interscholastic Athletic Executive Board, 87 to 2010. In Service Committee, Substance Abuse Committee, 85 to 86, Situate, Mass. Scholarship Committee, 1977 to 85, Brooklyn High, Massachusetts, responsible for interviewing, selecting, and awarding $125,000 in student scholarships. The reason I'm bringing this up is I want everyone to know the thought and the process that went into selecting individuals that can most represent the town accurately, and I mean the entire town, to deliver us a product such as it's about to be delivered this evening. So at this point, I'll turn over to their findings and recommendations to our chair, James Broderick. Jim, thank you for joining us, and take it away.
Thank you, President Kane. One clarification I would make is that I have been a resident of Long Meadow for almost 40 years. But I'd like to start by saying good evening, and that we appreciate the challenges everyone has experienced in budgeting and managing budgets during this time of uncertainty with COVID restrictions and safety measures. I'd like to say thank you to Town Manager Mary McNally, Finance Director Steve Lonergan, department heads and school administration for assisting our committee in doing its work. I'd also like to say thank you to the members of the committee, particularly the Town Council committee members doing double duty, for working diligently and sharing their expertise and judgment during this process. The protocol for our process was as follows: have information gathering meetings with town manager, department heads, and school administration to review budget requests. Then vote on our recommendations regarding the budgets at separate meetings following the information gathering sessions. No departments nor town manager were invited to participate in the meetings that we held to vote our recommendations. In large measure, the Financial Oversight Committee agrees with the town manager's FY22 budget submitted to the town council on April 27. After the committee's review, we recommend a small correction to the sources projection and changes to only 3 expense budgets. The expense budgets affected are police, fire, and education. We recommend a removal of $89,000 in school choice revolving tuition funds from the Chapter 70 state aid projection, since these funds do not go to the general fund, but rather flow directly to an account maintained by the schools. We recommend a $40,000 reduction in the salaries line item of the police budget, number 210. The budget reduction provides sufficient funding for the establishment of a lieutenant position, but not enough for a new addition to staff. Given the challenges nationwide being faced by police departments, we agree that a lieutenant position makes sense. However, we think the town would benefit by allowing the chief to work for a longer period with current staff before determining, perhaps next year, whether a net addition to staff is needed. We recommend a $55,000 reduction in the salaries line item of the fire budget, number 220. It reduces the budget by the amount requested to add a deputy chief halfway through the year. The fire department is well managed and has done an admirable job of transitioning services and expenses to an ambulance fund and improving the town's responsiveness to residents. We do not view the deputy chief addition to staff as something that has to be accomplished in FY22. Given the size and nature of the school budget and its complexity as it relates to the town's overall expenses, I have asked Chris Saulnier, chair of this committee for the past 2 years, to speak more fully on the committee's recommendations. I'd like to hand over to Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I'm joining you this evening to explain the analysis that the Financial Oversight Committee conducted to arrive at our determination and recommendation to the Town Council. For purposes of brevity, I have rounded the numbers contained in this presentation, and I realize that listening to numbers can be boring. Bear with me, this may be an eye-opener. It is important to note that the following figures have been obtained through research, department heads, and the town's accounting office. As with other budgets, we looked at the education budget request of $32,471,000 and compared it to the previous year's budget. It is an increase of $877,000 or 2.8%. Of the $877,000 that's been requested by the school, $823,000 or 94% is for salary increases, and $54,000 is for the increase in non-salary contracted services expense. There are two components to the school budget: the town's contribution and Chapter 70 state aid. The town's contribution in the current year is $19,501,000. We noted that the request would increase the town's portion by $795,000 or 4%. That's a substantial increase. The governor's budget proposes Chapter 70 aid at $12,176,000. This would mean that the town's portion would rise to $20,295,000. So research was conducted on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's website. We learned the following. The department bases its local contribution requirement on enrollment. The student enrollment has dropped from 2,643 students to 2,457. That's 186 students. Some of them, I'm sure, and the committee was sure, were due to COVID. The department also reduced the required local contribution by $381,000. So technically, the DESE requires East Long Meadow to contribute only $17,113,000 for the coming school year. The school committee is asking taxpayers to contribute $20,295,000, or actually $3,183,000 more than the state is requiring. Potential cuts in school staffing have recently been discussed by the school committee. You should be aware that 2 eliminated positions are reactivated. That is the East Long Meadow High School assistant principal and the Birchton Park Middle School foreign language teacher. There are 3 new positions proposed. Those are an adjustment counselor shared between Maple Shade and Mountain View, an additional pre-K teacher, and a second assistant principal at the high school. We have no information on staff retirements for this year, and we know that COVID relief funds are available to fund the counselor position, and we would advise the school committee to take advantage of those monies. In our process, we also learned that it's easy to lose sight of other school-related expenses that are not in the school budget. Our committee reviewed and considered all the school-related expenses paid by the town. They are debt service, principal and interest on former school projects due this year in payments, $1,050,000. Debt exclusion payments on former school projects, $160,000. The recent council approval for a high school feasibility study, which will be bonded at $1,260,000. Our committee has recommended that these school-related capital projects for the coming year be funded. Purchase of Chromebooks for students, $133,500. Bonding for a modular classroom at Mountain View School, $950,000. Construction of a locking vestibule at Maple Shade School for security, $32,000. Replace the carpeting at Birchland Park Middle School, $56,000. And resurfacing of the high school track at $135,000. And I must note that $107,000 of that is coming from community preservation funds and $28,000 is coming from a school revolving fund. So the total recommended school capital projects is $1,306,500. All of these costs that I have just listed amount to $3,776,500. One might think that would be the end of it, but no, the following costs would be in the school budget, but they are not. They are contained in other departmental budgets. For example, all building maintenance, repairs, field maintenance, groundskeeping, mowing and plowing are within the Department of Public Works budget to the amount of $620,518. Technology purchases and tech support services are contained in the information technology budget to the amount of $458,380. The payment for crossing guards and a high school safety officer are an additional cost which are within the police department budget. These additional costs that are in other departments amount to more than $1,078,898, and they are not in the school budget. The health and life insurance for school employees in the town's budget amounts to $5,386,847, and the payroll taxes amount to $392,608. Per agreement, both of these figures represent 70% of what these accounts cost the town per fiscal year. The percentage of workers' compensation and liability insurance attributable to the school amounts to $337. So total for these town expenses is $6,116,455. All of the above related expenses amount to $10,971,850 paid outside of the school budget. That's worth repeating. Though all the school-related expenses outside of the school budget amount to $10,970,853, nearly $11 million is spent for school-related expenses outside of the budget. Further, the school department has received $592,200 in COVID relief school reopening grant and $26,000 in ESSER 1 monies. These are all COVID relief funds. There is still $3,112,000 that remains to be claimed in these funds over the next 2 years in ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds. Monies from the American Rescue Plan are yet to be announced, but surely some will come to the school. Our own legislature here in Massachusetts will most likely increase the Chapter 70 school aid. And to date, an increase has been proposed by the House and approved by the Senate's Ways and Means Committee. And that is money that's potentially more money for the school. Having gathered all of this data, our committee determined that an increase of 2% in the town's contribution to the school budget would be fiscally sound. The following figures are not rounded. We recommend that the town contribute $19,890,579, which will provide an increase to the schools of $472,288. Their budget, indeed, request would be reduced by $404,663. The school budget would then be $32,066,537, an increase of 1.5%. Our chairman's calculation shown on page 1 of your package informs you that the general government departments all grouped together stand at a 0.9% increase. Our committee feels strongly that this is a fiscally responsible and equitable recommendation for the town council to consider. Over many years, our town has consistently and generously appropriated more money than required to support the education budget. And that generous support will continue in the coming year, since the taxpayers will be giving the schools $2,778,000 more than required by the state, in addition to paying all the school-related costs that are not in the education budget. As Paul Harvey would say, and now for the rest of the story. At the 11th hour in the town's fiscal 22 budget process, the school committee voted at their May 24th meeting last evening to return $400,000 to the town's general fund at the end of the fiscal year. Vague reference was provided as to where that money would come from. Some said it was bus transportation savings because of remote learning. Others said it was due to the fiscal support from COVID relief funds. Whatever the source, it is taxpayer money in one form or another and should be returned to the town. Clearly, it is money the school had for its operations in this current fiscal year of 2021. If returned, the money would flow into free cash when the fiscal year's books are closed and cannot be used until certified by the Department of Revenue. You have to appreciate municipal finance law. The question then is what happens now? We are talking 2 different fiscal years, current and future. The school committee is requesting that the town council appropriate the $404,663 that is proposed to be cut from their budget. That means the $404,663 has to be raised by taxation, affecting the tax rate. And is this a fair proposal when it's compared to all the other departments? If we're all being practical, this is the committee that will be seeking approval from the taxpayers to go into debt for half of a new $100 million high school in the near future. Wouldn't it be more responsible to keep costs down, to limit salary increases, and work with the town council and its financial oversight committee right from the beginning of the budget process? Recommendations would be that they submit their budget in a timely manner without lengthy time extensions. That is, that they would submit at the same time as all other departments, that they provide budget worksheets that are detailed and explanatory, not a one-page summary for a $32 million budget, and that they are forthright with information as to new positions, retirements, and other monies that flow into the school coffers. The Budget Financial Oversight Committee, in its deliberations, strives for fairness in the distribution of the town's funds. We are mindful of the impact on the taxpayers and are confident that that is also true of the members of the town council. I thank you for listening and for your consideration, and with that, I will turn it back to Jim.
Thank you, Chris. I'd also like to just mention that the town manager does not review or vet the budget submitted by the schools. It's included as is as part of the town manager's final budget that was submitted to the town council. So therefore, the Financial Oversight Committee marks the only step in the process, other than the town council itself, that reviews the submitted school budget prior to its being voted on by the town council. At the 524 school committee meeting, I believe I heard the chair propose that there be discussions regarding the budget process prior to the beginning of the actual fiscal year 23 budgeting cycle. I think this suggestion makes sense, and I hope it can be followed up on. There are two other budgets I'd like to mention. We recommend no change to the town manager's budget number 122, which includes $35,000 for a trial projects manager / grants manager position. Our recommendation is regarding the position, not the title, which we assume will be worked out to everyone's satisfaction. Given the town manager's 18 direct reports and a myriad of claims on time, this position could improve the progress of town projects and provide the town more opportunity to seek and obtain grants. The trial nature of the position will allow time for the position to prove itself or not prior to the next year's budgeting cycle. We also recommend no change to the town accountant's budget number 135, which includes $25,000 for a trial part-time position, which will assist the finance director in ensuring, among other things, that the town complies with recommendations made by its third-party auditor. We think that it makes sense to make sure procedures and policies as recommended by the auditor are in place prior to the next audit. Again, our recommendation is regarding the position, not the title, and the trial nature of the position will allow time for the position to prove itself or not prior to next year's budgeting. We are in agreement with the capital projects budget developed by the town manager's capital advisory committee. We made no recommendation regarding the Heritage Park construction documents project since it is being funded by community preservation funds and does not affect the general fund or this operating budget. Further, we anticipate that this project will continue to be discussed among recreation, CPC, town manager, and town council. As Chris stated in her remarks, our committee has strived for fairness and balance in the distribution of the town's funds and has tried to keep in mind the impact of budget decisions on all residents. Excluding insurance and debt service, the aggregate budget submitted for FY22 by town departments, that is general government, public safety, public health, public works, culture and recreation, and human services, represented an increase of 1.5% over FY21. Financial Oversight is recommending a 0.9% increase. Education submitted an FY22 budget representing a 2.78% increase over FY21. Financial Oversight is recommending a 1.5% increase. Overall, thanks in part to a very favorable one-time refinance, which lowered our debt service by 42%, the town's general fund budget before other uses would increase by only 0.8%. If the town council passes the budget as recommended, we project a 5-cent drop in the tax rate from 2106 in FY21 to a projected 2101 in FY22. We understand that FY23 is going to be a full revaluation year, so we think staying conservative in the tax rate this year is prudent. Moreover, we must always keep in mind that we have a hard stop per state law at a maximum tax rate of $25. After accounting for uses and projected uses of free cash since certification, unrestricted reserves, which includes our stabilization fund, are projected to represent 7.3% of the town's projected FY22 general fund uses. This is right smack in the middle of our long-standing guideline of 5 to 10%. Regarding the OPEB trust fund, although the general fund budget includes $50,000 to go to the fund, the committee agrees with town management that a strategy of annually reviewing potential excess free cash and authorizing an off-operating budget transfer to the OPEB trust fund makes the most sense for continuing to make significant deposits to the fund. Two final notes on the budget. First, exclusive of the schools, the town anticipates receiving up to $4.7 million in additional aid funneled through the federal government and the state. However, we are still waiting for information regarding timing and eligible uses for these funds. Therefore, we recommend that the town council adopt the recommended FY22 budget now so that expenditures can continue to be appropriated through and after June 30. When the additional funds are received and information regarding their use is received, the town manager may bring recommendations to the town council that would affect the authorized FY22 budget. However, this should be good news, meaning money would be available that could not be factored into the current budget, and therefore a good problem to have. We are hopeful that this additional information will be able to be obtained and acted upon prior to our having to submit the town's recap sheet. Second, just like to remind you, as we always do, that the recommended budget remains somewhat provisional since we do not yet know for certain the amount of state aid the town will receive. However, we feel it is a common sense budget based on fairly meeting the needs of the town. And throughout this process, we have strived to keep the taxpayers and the fiscal welfare of the town in the forefront of our deliberations. Thank you for your consideration of our recommendations. And I'll be happy to walk through pages of the presentation if you would like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim, and thank you, Chris. And on behalf of the entire town council, I'd like to thank everybody on the FOC committee that dedicated many hours of all their time and certainly their talents for the recommendation. As we move forward here, I'm going to open up the meeting for public input. I want to remind everyone, this is not a debate. The public will have an opportunity for their input, and following public input, the council will have the same. I can explain how this is going to work because of the Zoom situation that Don Mackey can see who the attendees are in the crowd right now with a hand raise. And I will ask Don to bring them in one at a time. And Jeannie, if you could help out with the timing, I'd like to limit conversations to 3 minutes, similar to what we did with our public comment session. That being said, I would also like any attendees to listen to the previous speaker so that to avoid redundancy where conversations that are taking place aren't repeated to make our meeting as efficient as possible. So that being said, Don, I'm sure there's hands up in the audience. Can we start working them in one at a time, please?
At the moment, Mr. President, there are no hands up. I see no hands raised.
Okay. That being said, the public, I want to say the public input of the meeting, I will close public input. I'm not closing the public hearing, just public input at this point, and I would ask for council input. And hearing and seeing none.
Hang on, Mike.
Oh, there we go. Pat.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate all the efforts that the town manager and her people and the town oversight committee have done. One disappointment I have is in the fact that our streets continue to be in very poor condition. And the town has not requested a single dollar of expenses over and above the $579,000 of funds that are earmarked that are going to be reimbursed by the state. We have approved a bonding bill to build 5 years worth of sidewalks in 2 years, but not a dime for the streets which are used by all the citizens, including school buses and parents. Pleasant Street, parts of Shaker Road, Maple Street, and others are patches on patches. in my neighborhood, North Circle Drive, has a sinkhole from a water main break that has been patched several times. Residents have been told the streets will be repaved as soon as the water main is replaced, which was supposed to be last year, then this year, and is now on the capital plan for 2025. I don't blame the DPW. It's us not giving them the money. At the appropriate time, I'm going to move to add $125,000, approximately 5 cents on the mill rate, to our capital spending to begin to catch up on some of these streets. I believe we should be appropriating at least $250,000 for the next several years to this effort. Our residents know how much this is needed, and I believe they will support it.
Thank you, Pat. Ralph, and you're on mute.
So I have two items. The first is in response to Pat Henry's. Didn't we roughly 2 years ago or 3 years ago approve an increase or a bonding for the streets of over $1 million? Steve may know better looking through the bonding, but I was pretty sure right before I came on the council that I believe it was Councilor Joe Ford had mentioned it and brought it up, and I believe we added that in at that point to redo a lot of the streets. So that's my first comment, and I will let Steve look through it. My second is I have a concern under it's account number 399. It's in regards to the school committee stipends. I believe it was 2 years ago we allocated a 25% increase in their stipends, and now we're looking at another 25% increase. Now, to say that it's a large amount would not be accurate. It's $2,200. My concern isn't with the amount. My concern is with the procedure. We have no procedure in place to look at elected officials and non-elected officials, stipends, salary, however you want to word it. I think this is something that we need a process and, you know, maybe a time frame. Every so many years, we take the time to look at what people are being compensated and compare it with other close communities with us to see if an increase is deemed necessary or not. I mean, over the last 3 years, it's just been, well, the school committee asked for one, you know, let's go ahead and give it. And there's been no process in place. And I think there needs to be a process before we go further and give out any additional stipends to any of the boards.
All right. Are there any other comments at this point? Then is that going to be framed in the form of a motion?
I would frame it in the form of a motion. I move that we reduce from account number 399 the increase of $2,200 that has been recommended.
A motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so we can continue discussion at this point. Is there any other discussion pertaining to Ralph's motion? Pat?
I did not know Ralph was going to raise this, but it is an issue that I've thought of before, because I think originally when the new form of government was created, there were different fees for different committees, and some got nothing, and some got more than others. Some is depending on, like, if they were assessors, they had some significant knowledgeable background and so forth. And I believe that at that time a decision was made, they're all going to be the same, with the exception of the town council and the school committee at that point. All the others are going to be the same. I don't know what happened there, but it's always been bugging me that there hasn't been any, that I know of, any study done to say what these fees should be, or an update of the fees in the last several years. Thank you.
Okay. I would just add that, I mean, obviously we have a planning board We have conservation off the top of my head, library, town council, school committee. So I can understand where the rationale for the motion is on the floor. Is there any other discussion pertaining to the motion? Marilyn?
Thank you, Mike. I don't dispute what Ralph is saying. In fact, I agree with him. I'm just questioning the timing. The request has been recommended by the Financial Oversight Committee, and I just think that this is something we should do, but I'm not sure tonight is the time to make that decision. There's a lot of components. We need to touch base with our town manager because she's responsible for the appointed committees and boards and commissions. And I also feel that in spite of the school committee meeting where we were actually not treated very well as a council and as a financial oversight committee, I don't want it to look like sour grapes. I really don't. I think it's a process we need to engage in at some point in the future, but not tonight. Thank you.
Don?
I couldn't say it better. I totally agree with Marilyn.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we do need to roll call vote this. Pat?
And the motion is to reduce.
Yes.
Yes.
For clarification purposes, I want to be clear on this myself. I believe he's talking about reducing at this point in time, but it will be revisited and that stipend could go back, but there'll be a process in place. But we need to clarify because it does affect the numbers going forward when we continue through the process this evening. Is that what you're representing, Ralph?
Yes, exactly. So at this time, there would be no increase in account number 399. So the $2,200 that they've requested would not be allocated.
So if we work through this process in a reasonable amount of time, those monies could be reinstated in fiscal year 22, where we have the time to do that, correct?
I think as soon as we can put a process in place, we should look at all boards and committees, whether they're elected or non-elected.
Okay, thank you. So again, if there's no further, is there any further discussion? I think we're pretty clear. So we'll start with a roll call vote. Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
No.
Kathy?
No.
Ralph?
Yes.
Don?
No.
And where's Tom? Tom, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay, then
4-3 for it.
4-3. Jeannie, Jackie, I guess you're all set with the vote, correct? Okay, I muted. All right, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing so we can continue on with our agenda. Pat?
I would like to make a motion with regard to the streets, and that would be our motion number 5 coming up. I can make it now, or I can make it when motion number 5 comes up. Motion number 5 is the capital projects.
It might be cleaner to make it when that motion comes up so that we're not skewing all the numbers until we get to that point.
I'm fine.
So thank you. Motion to discontinue the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Don?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
People are disappearing. Marilyn?
Yes.
Yes. Did I get everyone? Sorry, my screen's jumping around. Okay, so next order of business. We're going to continue with the our motions. We have 16 motions at this point in time. So I will accept the motion on the first packet that you received regarding appropriation and funding.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $61,857,111 for town purposes and charges in anticipation of revenue for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2021, in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 4, and all acts in amendment thereof, and including in addition thereto, Chapter 849 of the Acts of 1969, as amended for the operation of the town departments as contained in the Town of East Long Meadow operating budget as printed in a chart with this presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made a part hereof by reference, entitled, quote, unquote, General Fund Uses, General Fund Operating Budget, Fiscal Year 2022.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to open up for discussion. But prior to that, I would just like to clarify with Steve that the amount that Councilor Anderson recited should be in reference to, is that a reduced amount by $2,200 per Councilor Page's motion?
Yes, it is, Mr. President. If the school committee, the 2,200 was not removed, it'd be 61,859,311.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Marilyn?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Pat?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And Ralph?
Yes.
Okay. We're ready for our second motion when somebody wants to present.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 to be added to the stabilization fund, account number 8216 for fiscal year 2022 for the purpose of setting aside funds for future expenditures.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
Motion for item number 3.
I
Mike?
move,
Can I add a point of order? I'm having difficulty hearing folks. I don't know if it's my speakers or something else.
I'm hearing everything loud and clear, and Marilyn was going to present this motion, Tom.
Okay, so I'm going to try to adjust my speakers, and it could be my end. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 to be added to the other post-employment benefits liability trust, OPEB, account number 8225 for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. I'll start with Pat.
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
Motion for item number 4, please.
Mike, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 to fund the compensated absences reserve account number 8226.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Pat?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion number 5, please.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate, transfer and reappropriate, and borrow for capital projects for the 2022 fiscal year, a total sum of $4,824,778 for the purposes and in the amount set forth in the chart published with the presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made a part hereof by reference, entitled 2022 Capital Projects, as recommended by the Financial Oversight Committee as follows. Raise and appropriate for general fund capital projects, $1,055,117 to be bonded and paid from the general fund capital projects, $2,150,000. Funding from closed capital projects, line account 3352, $40,450 for a total of $3,245,567 for general fund capital projects. To be bonded and paid from sewer enterprise fund, $228,556. To be paid from the sewer enterprise fund, $50,936. Funding from closed capital projects, line item 3339, $32,475 for a total of $311,967. To be bonded and paid from the water enterprise fund, $658,499. To be bonded and paid from the stormwater enterprise fund, $261,031. To be paid from various grants, $211,939. And to be paid from the ambulance fund, $135,775.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second, and discussion, please. Pat?
I would like to amend the motion just made on the floor. I would like to change the dollar amount shown on line 3 of $4,824,778. I would like to increase that by $125,000, so it reads $4,949,778. And on line 9, increase that number, which is now $1,055,117 by $125,000, so that it would read $1,180,117. The purpose for which would be an increase in the pavement funding from the capital projects, as I described earlier, is a concern I think that the town would appreciate.
Okay, we have another projected motion here. It's chapter 44, section 32. Do we have a second on Pat's motion? I do not see a second. So we will roll call vote on the motion as presented previously by Councilor Hill. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. This is a roll call vote. Again, Pat?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Thank you for motion 5. Next motion. I don't see a number on, let me just make sure.
For 6.
Right.
Yeah, 6. That was a pickup from 5.
Great. Motion 6, please.
I move to maintain the water rates at $3.60 per 100 cubic feet for fiscal year 2022. Said rate has been factored into the Water Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
second,
And a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Roll call starting with Tom.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And Ralph?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion 7, please.
I
I
move,
move to maintain the sewer rates at $3.70 per 100 cubic feet for fiscal year 2022. Said rate has been factored into the Sewer Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022.
Okay.
second.
And motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none. Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And Don?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion 8.
I move the town vote to approve the fiscal year 2022 stormwater fee schedule as printed in the presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made a part hereof by reference entitled, quote unquote, stormwater fee schedule. Said rate has been factored into the Sewer Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Mike, I just have a question on this. Why is the stormwater fee schedule factored into the Sewer Enterprise Fund?
Probably should say stormwater.
We have a Stormwater Enterprise Fund, correct?
Yes, we do.
Would anyone, are you looking for clarification or?
Well, I don't believe it's, said rate has been factored into the Sewer Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 22. We're talking about stormwater. I think it should be, said rate has been factored into the Stormwater Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 22.
Yeah, agree.
Good catch.
You want me to retract my motion and restate it?
I think in terms of efficiency, that would be best.
All right, I'll withdraw my motion
I'll withdraw my second.
and I'll make a new motion. So we're going to change it from Sewer Enterprise Fund to Stormwater, right, Ralph?
Correct.
All right, I move the town vote to approve the fiscal year 2022 stormwater fee schedule as printed in the presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made a part hereof by reference entitled, quote unquote, stormwater fee schedule. Said rate has been factored into the Stormwater Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing and seeing none. The only point I can add is this is obviously a typo, and I'm glad we picked up on it and got it right. So thank you. And roll call with Pat.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Okay, we turn the halfway point here. Motion 9, please.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $3,367,958 to the Water Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022 as printed in the presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made a part hereof by reference entitled Water Enterprise Fund.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none. Marilyn?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Pat?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And Ralph?
Yes.
Motion 10, please.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $2,440,500 to the Sewer Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022 as presented in the presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made a part hereof by reference, entitled Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. A roll call vote with Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Motion 11. Okay. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $311,513 to the Stormwater Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022 as printed in the presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made part hereof by reference, entitled Stormwater Enterprise Fund.
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
Great. 12, please.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $319,850 to the LCAT Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2022, as printed in the presentation, a copy of which is attached to this motion and is made a part hereof by reference, entitled LCAT Enterprise Fund.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Marilyn?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you. 13. Tom, you want to take this one, Tom?
I couldn't hear you, Mike. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you want to present motion 13?
Okay. I move the town vote to reauthorize revolving funds for various town departments. Appropriate. I'm just having trouble reading this. Pursuant to the provisions of the Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2, for fiscal year 2022 as follows.
Okay, we do have an exhibit here. We're not going to read the entire exhibit, but it will be on file. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion on the motion? Don?
Not to be a pain, but I kind of think we're putting a specific dollar amount. We really should read that in there for the purpose of the public. I can see referencing the presentation, but not this. So if you want, I'll reread it.
Why don't we do that? And again, this will be on file for the public to see, but in order of incorporating it into the motion.
Yeah, it's specific dollar amounts on there.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we have Tom retract his motion and then, or do you want to add to it?
Well, then I'm amending the motion, so we'll have a second vote. It's either way, it doesn't matter. I mean, I can amend the motion by adding the language, but there's two votes. If we remove the original motion, the second, if you want me, Tom can reread it, doesn't matter. I can reread it.
He's having a little bit of trouble with his mic. So Tom, can you retract your motion, please?
Okay, I retract my motion as I read.
I'll retract the second as well.
Okay.
We're
I'll
starting over with
make a motion. This is number 13. I move the town vote to reauthorize revolving funds for various town departments appropriate pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2 for fiscal year 22 as follows. Revolving fund, solid waste disposal, account number 2805, authorized to spend, fund, health department. Revenue source, sale of trash bags and recycling rebates. Use of funds, salaries, expenses, supplies, and contractual services to operate the solid waste disposal and recycling program, and the fiscal year spending limit $174,948. Revolving fund, Council on Aging, account number 2809, authorized to spend fund, Council on Aging. Revenue source, General Council on Aging programs and events such as fitness room memberships, exercise fee, class fees, event fees. Use of funds, salaries, expenses, and contractual expenses to operate these programs at the Council on Aging, and the fiscal year spending limit, $19,540.
Second,
Motion in a second. Any further discussion? Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Marilyn?
yes.
Thank you. Motion 14, please.
I move the town vote to raise and/or appropriate $579,719 by borrowing or otherwise for the construction, reconstruction, and/or maintenance of public ways to be expended under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works, and said sum to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Any discussion? I'll start with myself. I'm a yes. Pat?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And Ralph?
Yes.
15, please.
I move the town vote to accept the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund Reserve for fiscal year 2022 from the revenues estimated to be $300,000 for the purpose, and the amounts as follows. Administrative expenses, 5%. Historic Resource Reserve, 10%. Community Housing Reserve, 10%. Open Space Reserve, 10%. Undesignated General Reserve, 65%. And that the town transfer from the undesignated general reserve to the town's general funds to reimburse the town for the following. 1, pool bond payments of principal and interest, $47,200. 2, Brown property payment of principal and interest, $51,880.
Second.
Motion in a second. Further discussion? Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And Ralph?
Yes.
Okay, we're turning the corner. Number 16, please.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $53,000 to be added to the Valuation Services Fund for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Ralph?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
The motions are completed, and I believe we have a budget. Let me just look here. So we did previously come out of order, as I'm sure everyone remembers, and we covered orders of the day right down through 9D. One, I'll ask again, any action items needed for our next meeting that anybody finds apparent at this point? And I don't see any either right now. Our next scheduled council meeting is for June 15th. As we spoke about, we do have an election on the 8th, and I would encourage anyone watching or spread the word to please come out and vote. We do not have any executive session. Tom, you have a comment?
Yeah, I do, Mike. I just wanted to go back over Councilor Page's recommendation to maybe form a committee as an action item for our next meeting to look at putting together a process for the creation of stipends to all the boards that we have in town and the commissions to make it equitable across the table and have a process in place. I don't know if it's possible before our next meeting, but
well,
just we get started.
It certainly falls under the parameters of action items for our next meeting. We will have a chance to discuss it and see what's coming up for the next agenda, but it certainly will be addressed. It was in the form of a motion, so there will be action taken. Thank you for your comment. Marilyn?
Also, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we need to bring back at some point council code of conduct.
Okay. That being said, we have no executive session for this evening. We talked about our next meeting. Pat?
I just want to be sure we do not forget that we need to change the dog licensing fee to $100. Make sure that Jeannie has that so that if there's another notice, that it goes out that way.
Okay, I see her waving her hand, signifying it's jotted down. And short of that, thank you all. This meeting went fairly quick, but it doesn't reference how much time and energy went into having this event unfold and finish this so that we can move on. So that being said, Pat?
Thank you, Mike. I want to piggyback on what you said. I think that this went so easily, and the committee made so few recommendation changes because of what Mary did and all the department heads for the months before the budget was submitted. It made it so that line after line after line after line they went through. It's like, what are we going to do? This is as lean as it gets. And so there's kudos to Mary and all the department heads, I believe.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sure on behalf of the entire town council, we all feel the same way and appreciate all the efforts and energy that went into making this unfold. So that being said, motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second on the floor. I'm comfortable saying I know there is not going to be any discussion. So we'll start with you, Ralph.
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Don?
Yes, and bye, everybody.
Hey.
Thank you, Don.
Don.
See you
Best
soon.
wishes.
Pat?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom O'Connor?
Yes.
Marilyn Richards?
Yes.
Thank you all and good night.
For he's a jolly good fellow. He's a
Good
jolly
night.
good fellow. He's a jolly good fellow that nobody can deny.
Good night.